Hold on to your hats, folks, because the Donald is back with a bang. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the global economy, Trump has once again taken center stage with his latest announcement. In a move that surprised absolutely no one, Trump recently dropped a tariff bombshell on our neighbors to the north and south, along with our favorite economic frenemy, China. This isn't just another chapter in the ongoing trade saga, it's a full-blown escalation. That's right. Canada, Mexico, and China are all in the crosshairs of Trump's latest trade war. The stakes are higher than ever, and the implications could be far-reaching. The reason? You guessed it, fentanyl. This deadly opioid has been a scourge on American communities, and Trump is pointing fingers at these countries for not doing enough to stop its flow. Trump claims these tariffs are a direct response to the flood of this deadly opioid pouring into the US. He argues that drastic measures are needed to combat this crisis, and tariffs are his weapon of choice. He slapped a hefty 25% tax on goods from Canada and Mexico, targeting everything from agricultural products to manufactured goods. This move is expected to hit these economies hard, but Trump believes it's a necessary step, and an extra 10% on everything coming from China. This is aimed at pressuring China to crack down on the production and export of fentanyl, which has been linked to countless deaths in the US. Is this a stroke of genius or a recipe for economic disaster? Economists are divided, with some praising the bold move and others warning of severe repercussions for the global economy. We're about to dive deep into the fentanyl crisis, China's role, and whether Trump's tariff tantrum will actually make a dent in this deadly epidemic. We'll explore the origins of the crisis, the international dynamics at play, and the potential outcomes of this high-stakes gamble. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. The road ahead is uncertain, and the impact of these tariffs will be felt far and wide. Stay tuned as we unravel the complexities of this unfolding drama. Let's face it, America has a bit of a drug problem, and by a bit of a problem, I mean a full-blown 5-alarm national emergency. The opioid epidemic has been ravaging communities across the country, leaving a trail of heartbreak and devastation in its wake. Opioids, both prescription and illicit, are highly addictive painkillers that produce a euphoric high. But the price of this fleeting pleasure is steep. Overdose deaths from opioids have skyrocketed in recent years, claiming tens of thousands of lives annually. Imagine a jumbo jet full of passengers crashing every single week. That's the human toll of the opioid crisis. And fentanyl, my friends, is the deadliest passenger on that plane. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, meaning it's cooked up in a lab rather than derived from poppy plants like heroin or morphine. Unlike its natural counterparts, fentanyl is engineered with precision, allowing chemists to manipulate its potency and effects. This synthetic nature makes it both a marvel of modern chemistry and a nightmare for public health. But don't let that fool you. This lab-made monster is potent. Its potency is what makes it so dangerous. Even a minuscule amount can have devastating effects. The margin for error is incredibly slim, making it a ticking time bomb in the world of narcotics. We're talking 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine potent. This means that the tiniest miscalculation in dosage can lead to fatal consequences. The strength of fentanyl is so extreme that it has become a leading cause of overdose deaths, surpassing even heroin and cocaine. Just a tiny sprinkle of this stuff can be lethal. Imagine a few grains of salt. That's all it takes to cause a fatal overdose. This extreme potency is why fentanyl is often referred to as a silent killer. It's invisible to the naked eye and can be mixed into other substances without anyone knowing. To put it in perspective, imagine a teaspoon of sugar. Now, think about how much sugar that is and how it can sweeten an entire cup of coffee. Now picture a couple of grains of salt next to it. Those tiny grains of salt represent a lethal dose of fentanyl compared to the teaspoon of sugar, which represents a lethal dose of heroin. The difference is staggering and highlights just how dangerous fentanyl is. That's the difference between a lethal dose of heroin and a lethal dose of fentanyl. This stark contrast underscores the peril that fentanyl poses. It's a game of Russian roulette with every use, and the odds are not in favor of the user. It's often mixed into other drugs, like heroin, cocaine, even counterfeit prescription pills, without the user's knowledge. This clandestine mixing is done to increase the potency and addictive potential of these drugs. But it also significantly raises the risk of overdose. People think they're taking their usual dose, but it's laced with a fentanyl time bomb. This unknowing consumption is what makes fentanyl so insidious. Users have no idea that they are ingesting a substance that could kill them in an instant. The result? Overdoses are through the roof. Emergency responders and hospitals are overwhelmed with cases of fentanyl overdoses. The crisis has reached epidemic proportions, affecting communities across the nation and leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The fight against fentanyl is a battle for survival, and it's one that we must take seriously. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the dragon in the room. China has become a major source of fentanyl and the chemicals needed to make it. Think of them as the unscrupulous landlords of the fentanyl world, happily renting out their labs and shipping out the deadly ingredients. While China has officially banned fentanyl and its precursors, the production and trafficking continue. It seems like some folks over there are more interested in making a quick yuan than saving lives. Section 5. The chemical pipeline from China to the US. So, how does this deadly white powder travel from the factories of China to the streets of America? The journey is complex and fraught with danger, involving multiple stages and players. It all starts in the bustling industrial zones of China, where chemical factories operate around the clock. Well, it's a well-oiled, albeit illegal supply chain. These factories, often hidden in plain sight, produce the raw materials needed for fentanyl. The chemicals are then packaged and prepared for shipment, often disguised as legitimate goods to avoid detection. First, Chinese chemical companies, often operating under the radar, manufacture the raw materials for fentanyl. These companies are adept at evading international regulations, using sophisticated methods to conceal their activities. Workers in protective gear handle these dangerous substances, mixing and preparing them for the next stage of their journey. Then, these precursors are shipped, often in bulk, to Mexico. The journey across the ocean is long and perilous, with the chemicals hidden among countless other containers. Once they arrive in Mexico, they are quickly transported to various locations, often under the watchful eyes of drug cartels. Think of it as a slightly more sinister version of Amazon Prime, with deadly consequences. The logistics are handled with precision, ensuring that the chemicals reach their destination without arousing suspicion. From bustling ports to remote warehouses, every step is meticulously planned. Once in Mexico, the precursors are cooked into fentanyl in clandestine labs, often run by drug cartels. These makeshift laboratories are hidden in remote areas, away from prying eyes. The process is dangerous and unregulated, with workers risking their lives to produce the potent drug. From there, it's smuggled across the border into the US, hidden in vehicles, concealed in shipments of legal goods, even sent through the mail. The methods of smuggling are varied and ingenious, constantly evolving to stay one step ahead of law enforcement. Border security is a constant battle, with officers working tirelessly to intercept these deadly shipments. And just like that, a chemical concoction from China ends up fueling America's opioid crisis. The impact is devastating, with communities across the country grappling with the consequences. Emergency responders are on the front lines, treating overdose victims, while community leaders work to find solutions to this growing epidemic. The journey of fentanyl from China to the US is a stark reminder of the global nature of the opioid crisis and the urgent need for international cooperation to combat it. Section 6. Trump's tariff gamble. Can it stop the flow? Trump seems to think he's found the solution: tariffs. His logic, if you can call it that, is that by slapping tariffs on Chinese goods, he can pressure China to crack down on fentanyl production. It's like trying to put out a house fire with a water pistol. The problem is, tariffs are a blunt instrument. They might hurt China's economy, but will they stop the fentanyl trade? Unlikely. Drug traffickers are masters of adaptation. They'll find new routes, new methods, and new ways to make a profit, regardless of tariffs. It's like squeezing a water balloon block one avenue, and the problem just pops up somewhere else. Section 7. The economic fallout. A price too high? And what about the unintended consequences? Tariffs are basically taxes on imported goods. That means American consumers and businesses will end up footing the bill, in the form of higher prices for everything from electronics to clothing. Think of it as a hidden tax hike, courtesy of the Trump administration. And let's not forget about the potential for retaliation. China could easily slap tariffs on American goods, hurting American businesses and farmers. So, while Trump might be trying to score political points by appearing tough on China, it's American consumers and businesses that could end up paying the price. Section 8. Beyond Tariffs, a multi-pronged approach. The fentanyl crisis is a complex problem that requires a nuanced, multi-pronged approach. Simply slapping on tariffs is like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. We need to tackle the demand side of the equation by expanding access to addiction treatment and prevention programs. We also need to work with China, not just threaten them, to crack down on the production and trafficking of fentanyl. This means sharing intelligence, cooperating on law enforcement efforts, and putting pressure on the Chinese government to take concrete action. Section 9. The fight for a solution, collaboration, and hope. The fight against the fentanyl crisis is far from over. It will require collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to evidence-based solutions. We need to look beyond simplistic solutions like tariffs and focus on comprehensive strategies that address the root causes of this epidemic. It's time to stop treating this crisis as a political football and start treating it like the public health emergency that it is. The lives of countless Americans depend on it.